Good morning, everyone. It is so good to be back here with you again. It really is. My whole being has been smiling. I tried to hug all of you, but I didn't make it to all of you, so this is my hug for everyone. I was saying to myself when I was feeling such joy at being here, it's been less than a month that we're gone. It doesn't feel like that much time, but as many of you, if not most of you know, a large group of us, many of whom are here today, 42 people, went on this really remarkable pilgrimage to the Holy Land. And a month isn't a month anymore when that happens, because when you really go on, I feel like I'm coming in and out. Is that, Karen, can you?
Just a little low, farther away from
Maybe right here. Let's see, I hope that's better. I think it'll be better, yeah. That a shift in consciousness occurs. It's what pilgrimage is about. And a shift in consciousness, it's really timeless. But you feel like all the time in the world has gone by and no time has gone by. And it's all of that. And I'll hopefully come back to speaking a little bit about that as I speak. But first about pilgrimage. And it was just so perfect to come back to this reading today, to this really lofty and somewhat humbling topic of the infinite Christ. I mean, every year I think, how do we talk about this? It's a little embarrassing in a way, yet somehow coming back from pilgrimage brought it to me in a different way. We go on pilgrimage really to go to some place, usually a holy place, and in this case we were in the Holy Land in Israel. But some holy place usually, I could say a lot of the same words about seclusion. We leave everything we know. We leave everything that we usually focus our minds on. We leave our worries, we leave our responsibilities. If the pilgrimage is well led, somebody else is taking care of a lot of that for you. We leave, to a large degree, a lot of the usual stimuli that we have. We no longer leave our phones, but we leave desks that are piled high. Everything that keeps us in our minds, we leave, and we go to have a different experience. Reason kind of departs. We hope it does. We are trying to get out of our minds. And then we have experiences which we never even imagined before we went. We go often saying to ourselves, oh, I really hope, and in this case, that I can feel Christ's presence. Or for some of us who were connected to Judaism, it might have had something to do with King David or just the history of that Holy Land. But what happens is so beyond mind and beyond words. And if you can get there and allow yourself to be touched and moved in the way that the trip is set up to do, then you come back transformed. Whatever your experience was, and however quickly we get back into our usual day-to-day activity, because it happens for most of us pretty quickly. We've been gone. Everybody we left has been missing us. They've been filling in for us, and it's like, you're back, you're in, you're on. But something has shifted, and we know it. And I was just thinking when I was sitting here before, looking out at so many of you, and I don't usually sit here and look out with the intention that I did, and I see these bright eyes, and I think what we all thought every one of us on this pilgrimage, look what we get to come back to. People whose energy is so readily available to come and meet ours where it was. This is a gift. This community is a gift. I remember Dunbar said to me many years ago when I wanted to be in seclusion, and there was a little bit of, there were people who were fighting me about it. They didn't quite want me to be gone for as long as I wanted to go away. And Dunbar, in his own way, for those of you who know him, he's just guileless. He said, well, that's just utter nonsense. If you go into seclusion or on pilgrimage, whatever happens to you happens to all of us. And that's just so true. I think anybody that you speak to from this pilgrimage will relate. They all felt that it was a profound, if not in their own words, the most profound experience of their life. But it was very telling for all of us when our guide, Rami, who is a modern Orthodox Jew in Israel, Rami was not looking to have an experience. He wasn't when Asha and I went last year, and then we've stayed in touch with him this entire year because even while we were there in January of 19, we were planning January of 2020. But he loves what he's doing. He loves Israel, he loves Judaism, he loves all the laws he has to keep, all the prayers that he recites daily. And yet, when we had the closing satsang, and even before then, I think many of you know I had to leave that pilgrimage early, and I'm going to talk about it. So there's a week where I'm only communicating to you based on what my fellow pilgrims were sharing with me on WhatsApp. But at the closing ceremony, you could feel the transformation in Rami. And he said, what I've gotten here is I pray longer and I pray deeper. What a great gift. He wasn't even looking, but Rami was on pilgrimage too. And unbeknownst to him, and without looking for it, which is the grace of God, it's the infinite Christ, when we open to it, he was touched by Ananda. In this case, it was this group, it was Asha and I, it was all of our communication, and it was this whole group, but he was touched by Ananda, by the bliss of it all. He had no idea. It just comes and it captures your heart. It's so much bigger than any of us are. And that's really what the sole purpose, and you can hear that either way, soul, S-O-L-E, or soul, S-O-U-L, purpose of all of life, of every experience, whether we're conscious of it in the moment, whether we realize that all of life is a pilgrimage or not, if we have to wait till that once every 2 years or 3 years or whatever to go on pilgrimage, the sole purpose is for our soul and God to reunite, for us to have that experience of that infinite consciousness that we are. I love that reading that Steve did. It was just so perfect, and it reminded me of a story about Buddha. Somebody once asked Buddha, well, what do you get from meditating? And Buddha sat with it for a moment, and then he said, nothing. But I can tell you what I lose by meditating. And he talked about suffering and greed and jealousy and pain, everything that was in that reading. And this is what we're all striving for. But we kick and scream a little, we know that. And sometimes, which is why I keep reciting that prayer that I opened with today, all of these beautiful sayings of Christ, because we forget, let me have ears to hear. Let me remember that you told us everything I am you are too. He didn't leave any of us out. He meant it. It's extraordinary. So we go on pilgrimage, we get close to that, and it changes us, and we come back, and we work, and we deal with patients and customers and whatever else we do in the world. But we're changed. We never can go back to who we were before this pilgrimage. Tandava shared a wonderful story with us in Raja Yoga the other night that I want to share with all of you. It was about children's, a man who did illustrations for children's books, Maurice Sendak. I'm sure many of you know of him. He's a very famous man. And he tells a story, and I went and read about it, that, many kids wrote Maurice Sendak letters. They would read his books and then write him letters. He said, I answered every letter. He said, some of them hastily. He said, but this one young boy, Jim, wrote me a letter, and he drew a picture on it. And he said, I just loved it. It touched me. He said, so I really responded to him thoughtfully and slowly. He said, I wrote him a little note. I said, Jim, I loved your card. And I drew him a little drawing of a wild thing, which is what he was particularly known for. He said, and I mailed it. And he said, not that long after that, I get a note from Jim's mother. She said, Jim loved your card so much, he ate it. I loved that image the other day. But what Maurice Sendak said about it, he said, that touched me more than almost any experience in my life. He said, I loved that. He said he didn't care that it was an original Maurice Sendak. It was going to be worth a lot of money. He said he saw it, he loved it, he ate it. And it really captures the essence, right from a child, of what it is that we're talking about with reclaiming our infinite consciousness. He didn't know what he was doing. He just loved that so much. He wanted to be one with it. He couldn't figure out how to get close enough to it. Why not eat it? In a way, it just makes perfect sense. It just really touched me when I heard that story. That's what we need. We need that child's enthusiasm to know God just like that. I want to share a story with you that's about the pilgrimage. Many of you know, exactly 1 week into the pilgrimage, my partner of 35 years now, Barry, got extremely ill. Most of you know I'm not dramatic about these things. I stay calm. If it's any of you, many of you have worked with me. If it's Barry, he was sick. I was watching this happen from Israel. I was calling in medicines, putting him on stuff. And then one night, I'm there with him on WhatsApp, and he cannot breathe. No exaggeration. He would say one word and then go, he couldn't breathe. I said, my God, he is dying. Now, I'm up in northern Israel. I'm not even in Tel Aviv. I'm in northern Israel. He's in Menlo Park. This is my partner of 35 years. It was startling. Anyway, we managed to get him to the emergency room. I stayed up all night in the lounge, talking to the doctor all night. Never once did any notion of sleep come to me. Never once. I felt no fatigue. I felt nothing but pure, unconditional love and caring for this man. And my heart was aching. He was here alone. He said to me later, I almost called, and he listed several people. I didn't tell him at the time. They were all with me in Tiberias. Anyway, I very quickly had to make plans and come home. And very quickly make plans and come home from Israel. It's not very quick. But it happened. I left kind of precipitously, sorted out some business, got out of the hotel. You hire a very expensive private taxi to take you down to Tel Aviv. You change your flight, which you can't do, so you wind up having to buy a whole new ticket. You fly for 20 hours. It's a deal. I get off the plane. I take an Uber home because he's too sick to get me. And I walk in the house, and he looks good. And I get irritated. Yeah. And it passes for a moment, pretty quickly, a few minutes. I'm in my head, I'm going, oh, come on. I just did everything I did. It was big. Never mind that I was waiting for that trip for a year. I needed to be in Israel. I did. I mean, personally, I needed to be there. But, so I collect myself, like, you can't be here and be mad at him. You're supposed to be like, oh, honey, I'm so relieved. But that's not what I felt. Anyway, we came out of that. We went through it. Neither of us said a word about it. A couple days pass. I'm sitting in the house. And he comes downstairs one day and he said, what are you doing? I said, you know, I'm grieving right now. I left a lot. And he asked a very important question. He said to me, what does that mean, grieving, when the whole path is about how everything in every moment is perfect? Well, those are very good questions. And it really, and he said to me, he said, you know, I saw that you were mad at me. Well, I wasn't going to lie to him. I was obviously mad. He's very perceptive. So I said, yeah. We didn't talk about it again. We both just let it go. And I gave that a lot of thought, and I realized, I meditated on it. That is the essence of the spiritual path. That in every single moment lies all of that, the truth of our human condition and infinite possibility. That the divine is both infinite and infinitesimal. That it's in every atom, every neuron, every quark, and it's larger, and it's infinity. It's all of it. It's like center everywhere, circumference nowhere. I never hesitated about leaving that whole experience, not for a millisecond. I love him unconditionally. He knew that. That's why he didn't question me about the moment of anger. I don't know whether he understood it or not, because we haven't talked about it. But I knew that he knew in that moment, because that love, true unconditional love, the instant he saw me, even if he wasn't better, he could breathe easier. That's what happens when we're held in that love. But the extraordinariness of it, all of that existing, the fact that I had to leave, had to come home, got angry, felt grief, it never touched my experience of the perfection of it and the knowing that it was exactly mine, that every moment in life is a pilgrimage. James is here. He landed in Israel with the flu, true influenza. He never left his bed for 4 days. And when he did leave, none of us thought he should leave, and he was barely present. You never felt anything from him other than just flow with it. Life is a pilgrimage. That was not what he expected. What I got wasn't what I expected. But if I, as I wrote to many of you, let go of the expected and embraced the unexpected, I could feel God's presence. My heart opened. Barry's heart opened. Many of your hearts opened as I shared all of this. I heard from most of you about how touching that is to flow with. Really, it's our karma, but whatever life is giving us. You know, as this as all of this was unfolding, I was drawn to read and reread, which I did about 4 times, the chapter in the autobiography of a yogi called An Experience in Cosmic Consciousness. Now, most of you have read that. Most of you have probably read it like I've read it. We wish we really knew what Master was talking about. We wish we could feel it. Somehow, after about the 4th reading, when I read his lines, he had left his guru to try and look for God outside, which can never happen. That's what this is all about. God was no more in Israel for me than he was in this home in Menlo Park. If I open to it, God's ability to come to us is infinite. We are the limiting factor in that. So I had to sit in that living room in Menlo Park and say, what are you going to do with this, Shanti? What will you do with it? Will you live these teachings, or will you decide this is too much? And it's not just all of what I've told you. It's that I knew for sure that a moment had come in our lives, Barry's and my life, where we were never going back to what it was. We had turned a corner. We're both in our 70s. This is a serious, treatable but serious illness. It changes how we look at things. We just turned the corner. What are you going to do? Are you going to keep wishing it could be what it was? Are you going to yearn for that, to miss the extraordinarily beautiful moment of expanding into God's life? Look at what I've been given now. Look at this remarkable opportunity to find God's joy in the living room in Menlo Park. Of course I kept trying to do that. Of course. Master comes back to Sri Yukteswar. He's been looking for an experience in cosmic consciousness. Nobody would give it to him. They say, go home. You have a guru. He's the one who should give you this experience. And Sri Yukteswar does. And Master says, as they're sitting there, both of them, with tears in their eyes, Master's words were, and I was conscious of the fact that the Lord, in the form of my guru, was expanding the small ardors of my heart into the incompressible reaches of cosmic love. Expanding the small ardor of my heart into the incompressible reaches of cosmic love. He didn't say he gave me more love, he taught me how to love. He said that love was there, and my guru touched me, and I was able to let my love expand into the incompressible reaches, into infinity. And his next line is that beautiful line where Master says, I cognize the center of the Empyrean. The Empyrean means where God's will and our will combine. It means the highest place in heaven. I cognize the center of the Empyrean as a point of intuitive perception in my heart. He says so clearly to us, I've heard that so many times, a point of intuitive perception in my heart, center everywhere, not just his heart, but my heart, your heart, every atom, every quark, everything, right at the core. Center everywhere, circumference nowhere, incompressible reaches. It doesn't matter where we are. It doesn't matter what we're doing. There's nothing in this world that's good or bad. It's hard to get that, but it's simply the truth. Everything is an opportunity. If we go to that center and look out at infinity, everything is a perfect opportunity. The divine potential in every human being is infinite. I said to Jyotish and Devi a couple days into this experience, and I meant this. I knew it to be true. I said, I was sitting there and saying to myself, this is hard. It was hard. Then I said to myself, so what? So what that it's hard? You're living a life of infinity if you just open to it. And then the thought came to me last week in Menlo Park. If somebody told me tomorrow, now of course these are just my words, but I'm telling you I felt it deeply. Shanti, you have a widely metastatic cancer. I would say to myself, that's hard. Boy, that'll be hard. And then I would say, so what? So what? What is a life or a body when we're talking about incompressible reaches? What does it mean? It just means show up. It means make conscious choices about the level of consciousness in which and from which you live. Habits are contractive. They pull us back. I was thinking, because Barry met this test so beautifully, I won't go into it right now, but he genuinely saw it as a perfect opportunity to grow in so many ways. And my prayer, he'd have to come up and speak for himself, but my prayer was, God, let him remember that. I thought of how many times I have watched people quit smoking when they think they have a lung cancer. I can't tell you. I've been practicing medicine for over 40 years. People quit smoking, they make changes. 2 weeks after the CAT scan's negative or the biopsy, they're picking up a cigarette again. This is hard for us, but so what? Why not just go for it? Go for all of it. We have an infinite ability to reach infinity. And there's no such thing as time. And there's no such thing as place. That's why, even though I want to be honest, I have a reservation to go back to Israel. I needed to go back. I needed to finish something. But I knew my life didn't depend on it. And I knew what just happened in the last few weeks was absolutely perfect. And it took a long time being with God and reading this chapter over and over. Master says in here, he says, the daily stilling of my thoughts. He says, I knew it was the only way that I could stay in touch with the infinite. Because he says the breath and the restless mind are whipping up the infinite energy to the vibratory level of being. We have to calm our breath. We have to calm our thoughts. What Buddha said, what Stephen read, what do you get from meditation? Nothing. It's what we lose. We are already all of it. And we have this infinitely loving presence constantly trying to remind us and invite us to keep expanding. Just let it happen. Just surrender to it in every and all circumstances. There's never a mistake. Take those words and tell yourself, look at this. Now I'm being given this to deal with. Wow, where are you, God? We're going to go through this together, right? We are together. As soon as I know it, you'll be there. Absolutely. We have infinite potential. We have infinite divine potential. That's the closing thought here. Always say yes. Always to open. Always to choose to be bigger. That little problem, whatever it was, that week, a week in Israel that I missed, that was making me crazy. It wasn't really, but that I was grieving. A week. You get out here, and by the end of the week, nothing changed. Nothing happened. That's still there. The job loss, the home loss, the lost opportunity at that pilgrimage, nothing changed. But we changed. And all of a sudden, that which is consuming our lives from that place of infinity, you can't find it. It's minuscule. What you feel is what Rami felt, what the pilgrims felt, what I felt, what I know you all know. You feel the extraordinarily loving presence of our Divine Mother.
Every morning when I greet the sun, when I move forth through crowded ways, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. When I laugh, oh, and when I cry with pain, when my best friends misunderstand, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. Dear God, my God, I am Thine for eternity. Dear God, my God, I am Thine eternally. Though my path lead me over desert sands, though it take me through bitter storms, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. When I'm working and when in earned repose, let come victory or low defeat. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. Dear God, my God, I am Thine for eternity. Dear God, my God, I am Thine eternally. Dear God, my God, I am Thine for eternity. Dear God, my God, I am Thine eternally. I am Thine